Tonight, once again, we gather in search of the truth, dark, and mystery. It's the Drunk Turkey Show.
Big development today in the investigation into the murders of 4 University of Idaho students. According to state and local officials and court documents, 28-year-old Bryan Christopher Kohberger has been arrested. He was arrested and arraigned this morning in Pennsylvania.
We have new details on what Bryan Kohberger was doing right before his arrest. Police says a tactical team burst in to arrest the Idaho murder suspect. He was in pajamas and latest gloves, stuffing trash into Ziploc bags.
Hey, greetings from the year 3000. It still sucks. This is Philip J. Fry, and you're listening to the Drunken Turkey Show. Your one stop for this sort of thing. Hit that button, like and subscribe. You know what to do, just like every other podcast.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to the Drunk Turkey Show. I'm Daniel. Nina is on her way. She'll be here pretty soon or here shortly. But in the meantime, in between time, we do have some new documents that have been released in the Bryan Kohberger case. And so what we'll do is we'll go through those first. And then when Nina arrives, we'll introduce her and then go through all that all what she has to present. So the first document that was dropped, and this is the first time I see them. I actually have not even opened them up yet. So I'm going to go through these with you guys, and then I'll give you guys my in real life, real time reaction to what some of these court documents are. So this first one is a Second Amendment order for disclosure of IGG information and protection order. So, you know, one of the things that I've been saying when it comes to this case is, you know, when it comes to the defense, is that to me, I think the defense is still trying to get the grand jury stuff thrown out. You know, at the end of the last hearing, the defense attorney was speaking extensively in about timing of when subpoenas were made and this, that, and a third. And the prosecution's, what they were saying was that, well, we already gave them the records. We told them why we wanted those subpoenas, and we gave them the results. And what the defense wants is, when did they do this? And the reason why they want all of this, in my opinion, is trying to implicate that the state lied about how they came across or how they began to investigate Bryan Kohberger. And, you know, to me, I think it's pretty obvious. And this isn't something that is in favor of the prosecution. This is something in favor of the defense, I guess, because it kind of favors what their argument is. But what it is that, excuse me, man, I'm sorry. I lost my train of thought. I was trying not to cough there so bad. Well, anyway, so when it comes to the timeliness on this, I think it all has to do with the grand jury. And the reason being is what they're trying to say is that the prosecution said that they found Bryan Kohberger through contacting WSU officer, finding his vehicle, seeing his bushy eyebrows on the driver's license, and then going, you know, step by step until they finally came across him. And that's not entirely probably true. You know, in my opinion, the mere fact that they had an IGG done tells me they didn't really have any suspects. They had no idea who committed this crime. And that once that return came back, I believe it was December 19th, it was December 20th, when Sergeant Payne made contact with the WSU officer who initially reported the white Elantra. Now, I do think the fact that he initially reported the white Elantra on November 25th favors the prosecution. The reason being is one of the defense's arguments is, when did they decide that the vehicle was no longer a 2011 to 13, which also goes back to the grand jury and the timing of things. They want it all to point back to the IGG being why they found him. That way they can say that the court system or that the prosecution lied when they said it was due to these other factors, which aren't true. Give me 1 second, y'all. Sorry about that. And so that to me is what the defense is trying to do. They're trying to show this, and now they have their Second Amendment disorder for disclosure of the IGG. So let's read this. This says here, based on May 30th, 2024 hearing, the sealed order of disclosure of IGG information protection order is amended as follows. Defense counsel and Taylor J. Longston and Elisa Massoff, defendant Bryan Kohberger, IGG, defense experts Dr. Leah Larkin, Jacob Barlow, and Stephen Mercer, and defense investigators may view the IGG provided by the state. So here's the other thing. Here's the thing about this. I think the biggest argument that the state has had about this is that the defense refuses to name everybody that's going to be looking at this. So right here where it says defense investigators may view the IGG material. So that's a coverall for anybody that the defense may hire. They may view the IGG material. And I think that's one of the arguments that the state is coming back with, saying, and there needs to be a specific person and a specific reason why you want these persons to come in and be able to investigate, the material given. So, but before we start or move forward, I want to say thank you, Mikey, for coming in and gifting a one Drunk Turkey Show membership. We had our live yesterday, Drunk Turkey Show membership live. And if you didn't catch it, it's going to go air out as soon as this show is over on Spotify. So you can go catch that there if you didn't check it out. But I mean, on Sunday, we had our live. I apologize. With our members only, make sure you want to become a member, hit that join button. That way you don't miss those awesome content that we do just for the members only. All right, let's continue this though. So it says here, any further dissemination of the material or the information contained within the material must first be approved by the court after showing by the defense as to why such individual needs to inform information for the preparation of the defense. Okay, that's like what I had said. All right. Additionally, no individual on the family tree who was not previously known to the defense via the defense's own investigation may be contacted by the defense or any agent of the defense without prior authorization of the court after a showing as to why such contact is necessary and material to the preparation of the defense. The defense mitigation expert who has created her own family tree who does not have any access to any of the IGG information may continue her mitigation investigation, including contacting defendant's immediate family members and other related individuals. Now here, they want to also have, immediate contact with the defendants. I mean, they want to have contact with the defendant's immediate family members. I was watching a Howard Bloom interview that he had with, please forgive me, I can't remember her name, but she's on Truth and Transparency often. I can see the name, I just can't pronounce it. It starts with a B. Well, in that interview, he spoke a lot about the book that he's going to be, that's going to be coming out on June 25th. And in that book, he spoke about that there's a couple of different angles, right? And they come both from a father's perspective, one being Steve Goncalves and the other one being Michael Kohberger, father of Bryan Kohberger. And he kind of mentioned that in this book that it kind of tells a story of Michael Kohberger going on this cross-country road trip and then kind of coming to the realization of what his son may have done, right? And so I'm excited for that book to come out. In fact, Howard Bloom is going to be on our show Thursday at 10 a.m. 10 a.m. Central, 11 a.m. Eastern. You don't want to miss it. There you go. This is who it was. I appreciate everybody throwing it out there. I didn't want to not give her props. It was Billa Lugosi. I hope I said that correctly. Let's see. Sirius Black comes in with a $5 super sticker. Thank you so much. Thank you. So make sure you like, subscribe, the whole 9 yards, because Howard Bloom will be on the show on this Thursday. I can't wait to talk to him. It's going to be an awesome show. And Nina, I see you in the back. I'm just going to finish reading this stuff here, knock out this, and then I'll bring you on. All right. So this was the Second Amendment order for the IGG information and protection. So let's go to the next one. State's third supplement response. State's third supplement response to the defendant's fifth motion to compel discovery comes now State of Idaho and by and through Latah County prosecuting attorney submit attachment exhibit 1 in response to defense fifth motion to compel discovery The state incorporates the following responses as fully set forth at this point. The state's response to discovery for the state's response to request for discovery filed on January 23rd, 2023. State's response to defendant's first supplement request for discovery filed on February 21st, 2023. And the same thing is going to be said over and over again. There's just a few different dates that are mentioned. Quite a few different dates. Just kind of covering all of them. The state has and will continue to provide discovery in advance of ICR 16 and applicable law. So all these are is just, let's see if there's anything kind of motion to compel, motion to limit scope of testimony filed May 10th, 2024. Let's see. We already know. All right. So that's the state's answer. Motion to temporarily seal exhibit. Coming out state of Idaho through Latah County. Temporary order sealing exhibit 1 of the state's third supplement responding to defense fifth motion to compel. Okay. And we've all seen this, undisclosed identity of confidential sources, investigative techniques, procedures, yada, yada, yada. We've all seen that one before. That's basic same jargon that's been in all these seal exhibits. And then the last one is temporary order sealing exhibit. And this is just basically saying that they're going to seal said exhibit. So nothing really too crazy on that part. But just something to kind of speak on and talk about here first and foremost. But now we're going to bring on Nina. Nina, are you ready? Let me know if you're ready. Give me a thumbs up if you're ready. And then, well, I'm gonna pull you on. Are you ready to go? All right, let's do this. So, Nina, here you are. How's it going, Nina? Can you hear me? Okay.
Yeah, I'm actually nervous tonight.
Don't be nervous. It's okay. How are you doing though? Overall, outside of the nerves, how's your weekend been?
Well, it's good. We're moving, so.
Well, that's good. I hope the move goes well. Sissy coming in with her membership for 16 months, saying my favorite channel. Thank you so much, Sissy. We appreciate that. So Nina, you've been on the channel before. We had an open panel show, and you came on. You told us a little bit about yourself, some of the trials and tribulations that you have gone through in your life, and how it's giving you a certain perspective when it comes to some of the things that were accused or alleged in this case, and that's kind of what brought you to the case. And since then, you've been investigating it quite extensively.
Yeah.
You have a interesting perspective on Xana Kernodle and Ashley. How do you pronounce her?
Flugal.
Okay, so we'll start off first. Who is Ashley Flugal?
Ashley was Bryan Kohberger's get high buddy.
Mm-hmm.
She accepted him, and she, I don't want to say she tolerated him. She was actually his friend.
Mm-hmm.
And so I think that he wanted more. From the way that the research has, taken me, is that, because she was like the first girl that really accepted it.
Well, I don't know if we know that it's the first girl. It's just the first girl we're aware of.
Okay, yeah.
But how do you know she rejected him?
Well, she's a lesbian.
Okay.
That's a pretty good clue.
Yeah, that's a possibility. I read an article that mentioned something about her sexual preference changing perhaps at one point.
Yes. She. I guess the better way to put it would be bisexual, because she has a son, so she has dated guys and everything. So, but at that time that their friendship sort of ceased, she was full-time in a relationship with a female.
Got you. And so, what about her also interests you when it comes to this case?
Well, at first it wasn't that big a deal because, I was just reading about it and everything. And I mean, it was like, okay, and what it was I was deep diving him as far back as I could find because I wanted to know who he was. And
Mhm.
so when I got to Effort, Pennsylvania in 2011 and everything, when everything started pretty much just falling apart, I thought, I wonder what she looks like, just out of curiosity. And so I searched until I found some pictures, and I found her Instagram and her Facebook.
Mhm.
And one of the first pictures I saw of her, I was like, oh my God. I mean, and the first person that popped into my head was Xana. I mean, and just looking at that picture, you may not see it, but then I sent you a couple of little short videos that I did,
Mhm.
and then I sent you some screenshots. But when you put them together and look at them, I mean, it's like they're like the same size, their hair, everything. And so that really got to me. And
Yeah.
then she died on Lindsay Lane.
Right.
And I'm like, what? Lindsay Lane, Linda Lane? I mean, and after that, I was hooked. And
Mhm.
so then when you take into consideration, if you really research the visual snow and you really deep dive the visual snow, and then you go and read his Tappa Talk and stuff like that, and then you put into his him being a libertarian, him studying social what is it, Darwinism,
Mhm.
and Aristotle and Sigmund Freud, you know, with all that, and then Linda Lane and them looking alike, then you get into that's where I really went off the rails was when you get into ego depletion and threatened egotism. And I
Mhm.
was like, oh my gosh. So, but you can tell. I mean, look how much they look alike.
I mean, there's similarities. You can see it. I mean, the hair, the eyebrows kind of look very similar. Um, you know, uh, height, weight. Yeah, I mean, I definitely do see some similarities. Now, you mentioned the house where she was found, right? It was
Yes,
on Lindsay Lane,
Lindsay
uh,
Lane
and where was that at? In what town?
In Effort, Pennsylvania, and I think it was an abandoned house.
It sounds like it was an abandoned house because when I read up on it, it said it a random house. So,
Right.
a random house doesn't. I'm fairly positive if she had broken into somebody's home, it would have said, after she, in a home that she broke into, some of those type of things. But a random house does sound like an abandoned place, maybe perhaps a place where people were meeting up to get, high and or to purchase the drugs. But
And see, when she died, she was already coming up on charges.
yeah, that's true.
I think she was actually supposed to be in court like a week or 10 days later.
And how far away is where she was at, and what was the name of the city again? I can't pronounce it.
Effort, Effort, Effort,
Oh,
Pennsylvania.
Effort, Pennsylvania. How far is Effort, Pennsylvania from Brightsville?
They're really close. I mean, like maybe 23 minutes.
Okay. So, because Bryan Kohberger, I think at the time was studying at Northampton Community College. At that point, I think that's when around the time he started
May
cleaning up his act.
She died in May of 2018.
Oh, okay.
But they had hooked up. They went to high school together, and the guy, I mean, like, and I think the guy ended up overdosing in 2021, and it was
Yeah.
her, the guy, and him, and they sort of introduced Bryan to the H. And so it was those three and everything. But then another one of his friends was in a head on collision and killed two other friends that they all knew. So it was like bam, 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 just death, death, death.
Dang. Yeah, no, I knew that he had a few people that passed away. I think another person also, I think you mentioned in similar fashion. So, what does this say? This says here, threatened egotism can cause people to feel anger, disrespected, and undervalued.
Right.
What is What is this?
Okay, so what happens is with you start out with like ego depletion, and what that is that's like when everything just starts falling apart and you're losing your self-control and your everything about your life you're no longer in control of because it's just falling apart at your feet, and so you go into what they call ego depletion because you start like doubting yourself and stuff like that. And when you go into an ego depletion, where if I don't say hello to you today and you're doing fine, it may not be a big deal. But if you're in ego depletion and I don't say hello to you, you take it as a huge insult to your ego. And what happens is instead of you being in control of you, you start letting your ego control you. Gotcha. Because you're trying to make up for that self-confidence and, the way you look at yourself. And so what happens is I think on some of these, it talks about it not about taking it from inward to outward. And so instead of just walking away or isolating or something, oh, I got my feelings hurt, then you start wanting the person that you feel did it to you to pay.
Right.
And when you get to that point, that's when it becomes threatened egotism. And this right here is where it talks, the two that I have highlighted is two forms of SA. And I think one of them, I don't know if the word is revenge. I can't remember, but it's the last one.
Vindictive.
Yeah, vindictive, and it has nothing to do, it's just that you want them to pay.
Right.
And what...
I mean, I get all that. I wouldn't doubt that he might have some of this or not. I mean, especially if he committed a crime. I just don't know if we can say this based on the information that we have right now.
Oh, no, I mean? That's what I was going to say is this is totally hypothetical. I mean, 100%, it's just everybody talks about how he had his life together. And look, I'm not a pro-burger. I'm not a guilter. Okay. This was just me researching and coming up on this and saying, okay, if he did do it, okay, then maybe this is maybe something that could have pushed somebody to that.
Right.
And that's the way that I was looking at it. It was not necessarily because I'm not ever going to say that he's guilty because I wasn't there,
Right. Well,
and but the thing about it is everybody, and I totally agree. He accomplished so much in his life from where he came from to where he was. He had made some major accomplishments, but about the first month he was at that school, it all started falling apart.
Right. I mean, it may have been falling apart sooner than that. I mean, it sounds like it was, with some of the other things that that were going on in his life, the losing his job as a security guard and stuff like that. But, one thing that I found interesting, though, going back to Ashley, is Bryan Kohberger was looked at during the investigation. I researched that, and it says that he was looked at before they ruled it a suicide. So the fact that they looked at him tells me that he was probably in some sort of communication or still in contact with her, because that's not somebody you would, just somebody that you had a friend in the past. It's not somebody that
no. In 2018, he had actually tried to get her to go to rehab. And they were still in contact and everything. And he was the sole suspect.
Yeah. I know. I understand that, but where did you hear that he tried to get her to go to rehab? I haven't read that. I'm just curious.
Yeah, it's I've got it in my research. As a matter of fact, it may be on one of the clips. See, I do everything on my cell phone, so I'm not like you that can put everything up. So what I do when I'm going to put a video out is I'll put out a little clip video that shows my research and my receipts. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And so that's what these are just my little receipts, and I mean, that's like, I know AR has talked to Ashley's family.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And and like I said, I am not at all saying that that's, the only thing that I said that brought that brought it up to me was when I saw her. I was like, if he's already in a downward spiral, and say her and Jasmine was just walking down the sidewalk, and he looks up, and sees Xana, because in one of my clips, there is a clip from Xana's aunt on a Facebook post where Xana's aunt says that they were told Xana was the target.
Hmm.
And I've got it on there. That's one thing. Anything that I say, I can show you the research to it and everything, because I will not say it if I can't back it up.
When did they say this? When did that information come out?
It's in one of the clips. I think it's actually in this clip.
Was that
And what it is
before
somebody
or
on Facebook is talking about, the murders and everything. And a lady comes on and says, no, Xana was the target. And they're like, how do you know that? And she says, I'm Xana's aunt. And she says, they told us that she was the target.
Huh.
And
Okay.
that's in one of these clips.
Do you know if that was before or after the arrest of Bryan Kohberger?
Hang on, I'll tell you.
All right. While she does this, I'm going to play this real quick. I think that's important because I think it is kind of hard to determine if it was beforehand. I find that hard to determine who the target was before the arrest of Bryan Kohberger, solely because, well, they didn't know who he was until December 20th. They arrested him within 9-10 days. All the information that they had at that point was that the crime had been committed. Now they have information about who committed the crime. I don't think they had the entire motive. I think that given the lack of evidence, I don't know if you got, there's a saying out there, the lack of evidence is evidence. So the lack of DNA being present on the scene, the manner in which they passed, the lack of sounds of emotions coming from the killer from the audio 50 feet away, all those things probably would tell an investigator that the person that committed this crime, this was like a thrill kill type of situation, a BTK, a serial offender, so to speak. So none of that says that it was somebody, so you can probably determine those things, but who the target is, I think would be a little bit harder to determine until after his apprehension. And then you can go through, his footsteps. Where was he at? Who was he apparently following, if any of them? You know what I'm saying? So what date did you find?
Okay, when you still look at the clip, you can look at it too. Up at the top, I think it says like May 20th, but then in the comments, it just says 5 days. Like five days. So I don't know, but I don't know if it's in this clip or the next clip that I sent you, but it's in there because I watched them before I sent it to you.
Got you. So yeah, this one talks about Carmela Beers. This is his professor, the one that stated that he was brilliant, and who, I guess, the one that she stated that she, what's the word I'm looking for? Endorsed maybe as a PhD student, and recommended him to the PhD program. And so this says here, was initially in the protective services program at the Institute, where he sought to prepare for a career in law enforcement. However, she said that after 2 incidents, he was moved to another program where there were no female students. No, you know what? I'm sorry. That's not Carmela Beers is not. I got him confused. This is the lady from the high school. My mistake. This is the one that talked about why Bryan Kohberger was moved from the law enforcement class to the HVAC class. See, this is where it says, that being said, her death in 2018 actually did probe a police investigation into Kohberger, who was the sole suspect in her death. Ultimately, it was determined to be an accidental overdose. That's interesting. You know?
Yeah. Because, I sit there and see what's funny about that is there was actually a guy, the guy that called the 911 call in, he actually left the house before the police got there. So I figured he would be prime suspect. you know, and so I went in and I researched him. I got his brother's background, his mama and daddy's background. I got all that. And I was like, well, okay, you know, but then I kept doing the research and I came across that and I was like, wow, I didn't expect that, you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, but yeah, he was the sole suspect.
Well, I mean, there has to be more than just, even if they were going to investigate this as a possible suicide, and you're going through it, to consider and investigate into somebody specifically means that there had to be something at the scene that didn't make sense. Right. Because I mean, if you go to the scene and you find needle in the arm, the whole 9 yards, and then you can possibly say that, hey, I mean, how do you go from that to, all right, that guy could be involved in this? I mean, there's got to be something in between.
Yeah, there was something that, you know, was not right.
Right. And so I don't know. I'd be interested in finding out, some of the details surrounding this information. I wonder if we can pick that, if we can get that. I wonder if that's something.
I have
Freedom of
dug,
Information
Lord
Act.
have mercy, I have dug. I mean, so you being an ex-police officer make him get further than me, or ex-law enforcement.
No, you're
Whatever.
correct.
Okay.
I've never had to pull records from another department or any of those things, especially on the civilian side.
Right.
So I honestly would not know. I'm assuming a Freedom of Information Act could be something that somebody can pull something out on. Those in the
Well,
in the
see,
chat
I didn't know if you could do that with him just being a suspect. You know what I'm saying? I don't know. I looked every way possible that I could look.
Yeah. Let's see.
Yeah, and just like that statement just said, the high school, they weren't allowed to talk about it, and then the security job wasn't allowed to talk about it. But then, it finally came out the reason he lost his job there.
Right. Well, and the only record that I'm aware of, the only time that he's been arrested was in 2014, I think right before he became an adult. And that was for the theft of his sister's phone.
Right.
He ended up selling it for $200 at a kiosk. So it ended up catching him. And then he ended up going to rehab and doing a bunch of other things to end up having his charges dropped and basically like deferred adjudication type of thing. And so as far as having his fingerprints on record, that's probably the only thing they probably could have on record are his fingerprints. They don't collect DNA when you get arrested for, a theft crime or something like that. You will get fingerprinted. So if he had fingerprints in the house, then that definitely would have caught, they would have caught him that direction. So this says here that on Wednesday morning, Richard T. Shinsky had allegedly been in a home of the 1200 block of Lindsay Lane in Effort Chestnut Hill Township, where troopers discovered Ashley M. Flugel. So do you know who Richard Shinsky is?
I researched him, and I mean, he has just some little trivial stuff. I mean, he actually turned out to be, and I'm proud of him for that. But, his brother robbed a store, and that's neither here nor there. He can't help what his brother does. But, it was just stuff like that. Nothing major came out or anything like that. And so when I read that, I was like, well, there's your number one suspect right there, if there's anything crazy going on.
And that's what I was going to say. I was like, the guy that found the body wasn't the suspect.
Well, yeah, I mean, because it says that he left before the police got there, and to me, I mean, God knows you, and I know from my past, you might get high with 20 people, but I can guarantee you're going to die alone. Yeah. And I mean, that's just the way it is,
Yeah, true. And, but even at that, though, I mean, they had a record of somebody who reported the sin, right? Who discovered the body.
Right. And he gave his name and everything.
Right. Why isn't he the second suspect? The fact that Kohberger was the sole suspect, they had to have something there that kind of pointed something
Can you find it?
Whether it be a phone call or a text message that she may have sent or conversation that she may have had with him.
If anybody finds it, please tell me.
Yeah, it'd be crazy if he was ruled out because of his GPS locations. That would be crazy. I'm not gonna lie. If he was able to, manipulate his GPS locations back then and kind of, people are creatures of habit. They go back to the same thing that they've always done.
Right. Yeah, I mean, our past is future behavior.
Yeah.
It can predict our future behavior. So
Yeah, no, I agree. And so,
and this goes into like the school stuff about, him getting in the altercation after the murders and stuff like that. And I may not have them all in order, but
right.
this one is multiple stab wounds. Yeah, that one's talking about that. That this is an investigator that thinks that it was a crime, that it was more of a personal attack because of the way that it happened.
Right.
And then that's a psychologist saying that he finally just lost control and said, "F it, I'm going to do it."
That's kind of what Howard Bloom was alluding to on that interview he was at not too long ago, saying that he thought that he was fighting, that Bryan Kohberger, that is, was fighting his own demons.
Yes.
Trying, maybe perhaps every time that he had gone over there was not necessarily like him doing it, but like a dry run, but just doing a little bit more each time. You know what I mean?
I want to say this, and like I said, I will never say he did it. I will never say he didn't do it. I will say that I want justice for Maddie and Xana and Ethan and Kaylee. And if he didn't do it, I want justice for him. Now that right there, this is how deep I went with that, was the book that you just passed. You know how at his parents' house, they said that they found a book and that he had page 118 highlight, something on page 118 highlighted. And so I went through y'all don't know how much Sigmund Freud I've read. Oh my gosh. But anyway, I come across Anne Freud, and this is page 118 out of her book. And so of course, I read the book, and so I get to page 118 and I'm like, oh my God, look at page 118. And that's just me thinking, if I was in his head and I had done, stuff like that, and, based on what I knew that he studied and stuff like that, it really caught my eye of, hey, that could be the book with page 118. Because the first place I went to was the manifesto of Elliot Rodger. And I was like, no, that's not a book.
Well, I mean, we don't know what it is, obviously,
Right.
but I would think, and we just saw what Rex Heuermann put out, right? And we know what books he was reading. And the books that he was reading were from homicide detectives and referencing, how to catch serial killers and things of that nature. And so I would assume that, maybe he highlighted certain things in this book that were utilized in trying to capture somebody. Maybe perhaps on page 118 of this book talks about how, a crime was committed and how they caught this specific person was by utilizing the cameras in certain places, right? Like, for instance, we know that Bryan Kohberger allegedly was at the King Road residence without his phone connected to the tower. When he comes back to the tower, he's further south. And hold on, I'm trying to put this together. It's escaping me, and I hate that it is. But how can I put this together? What do you think, Nina? I'll put it on you.
Oh no! See, you just made me go blank.
I mean, well, so what if, like, on page 18 that says, like, or 118, that there was a specific investigation, and then during this specific investigation, they utilized city cameras to locate a person, and what they did was they knew that the time of the murders was at a specific time, and that it would have taken this person a specific amount of time to get into these other cities. And if there's something that is detailing how they would have done that investigation, which ends up answering why he may have taken such a big loop around to get to Pullman and not gone directly to it, I think that might be interesting.
Right. Oh
You
yeah.
know,
I mean, see, I see him so much deeper, and maybe that's just, because he's got so much, to me, in my opinion, from the research that I've done. He had so much in it. Now this is the Facebook post. And I
Mhm.
may have them backwards, but at the beginning it's talking about the murders, and then it talks about how do you know that? And I can't tell what the date is though. See, up top it looks like May 20th, and unfortunately I had sent it with somebody in the screenshot. Sorry, Rose.
No, it's fine. But I mean, even if it was on May 20th, if it was on May 20th, it was after the arrest of Bryan Kohberger.
Right.
The Idaho case wasn't starting until November. So um, let's see. It says, I'm still wondering if this was his intent to SA Maddie at knife point. Kaylee surprised and interrupted him, which enraged him, so he attacked her violently, which was heard by Ethan and Xana, and he was then forced to silence them to get out as fast as he could. And then Natalie Lapin says, no, Xana was attacked first. Somebody asked, why do you think Xana was taken first? Of course, it's possible because Ellie hasn't told the public an order in which the kids were killed, but it's possible. I'm curious because it's very rare to hear people say they think Xana was first. So the problem, in my opinion, with it being Xana is first is the fact that Dylan stated that she saw somebody coming towards her and then turned towards the exit, and that was them leaving.
Right.
So, he wasn't coming from upstairs. He was coming from Xana's room.
Okay, but if you think about it, if Xana was first, okay, and she talks about she hears whimpering, right? So if he leaves thinking that they are both deceased, and then he goes upstairs, okay, as he's coming back downstairs, if he hears Xana whimpering and he goes in there and he says, I'm here to help you, to give her that false hope, of he's not going to kill me. You see what I'm
Mhm.
saying? And then finishes her off.
Hmm. Hmm. I don't know. I mean, it's possible. I think also we have to remember that there was sounds of a thud and other noises that came from the audio from 50 feet away.
Right.
And so that happens at 417. That leads you to believe that that's around the time that Xana and Ethan were being attacked. So if they were second or first, he'd have to then go from there upstairs, commit the crime up there, then come back downstairs, go back to Xana's room, then turn back around and walk out and be on Willinton Drive at 420. I
But
find
it also
that being
but it
tough.
also explains Steve's comment of he didn't have to go upstairs.
Well, Steve, I think a lot of people assumed early on that Kaylee was a target. And I think
Right.
that's what he was alluding to as well. I think he thought that, whoever the target was going to be upstairs. At the time, all we knew was that the injuries to Kaylee were more extreme compared to what they were to Maddie, which tells me, one, that Maddie was probably asleep when her attack started and that Kaylee wasn't. What also we know is that Kaylee was propped up against a corner. So if you're walking into the room and your heads are facing towards the door, you probably try to escape that direction. There's no reason why you'd be propped up against the corner. So
Right.
for her to be propped up against the corner means that their heads were facing towards the wall, feet were facing towards the door.
Right.
And so what it sounds like to me is that he attacked them while they were still asleep. It sounds like Kaylee may have woken up, but she was trapped. If
Right.
he was right there and she's in a corner, there's nowhere she can go. And so there's that. That's kind of the way I figure it probably went down in that scenario. And so I don't see it. I don't see how that picture can be painted if Xana and Ethan were attacked first, and let's just say Kaylee and Maddie, did they not hear anything at all? You know what I mean?
Right.
Dylan heard something. It sounds like Bethany heard something. So,
Oh yeah, yeah.
You know, I even think, to me personally, I think Xana was the third person attacked, and I think she even heard something, which is why I think she's the one who said, "I think somebody's here."
I can go with that.
You know, and so I think that, I don't know who the target was, if there was a specific target.
Right.
You know, it's very possible that the motive behind this entire thing wasn't necessarily a specific person in that house, but had more to do with who Bryan Kohberger is, allegedly, if it's him that committed this crime, and his inner demons and what his feelings were versus, and what he was trying to feel versus what somebody, or what these, individuals may have done to him, or anything like that. Like, for
Right.
instance, when you look at BTK, why did he choose his victims? And I think that if you look at it from that type of scope, I think it makes who they are less as important as to who they are to him, or what they represent to him.
Yes.
You get what I'm saying?
Yes, and I'll be honest with you. I think, my opinion, just from everything that I've researched, I'll be honest with you. I think, I don't know if I have the picture in here where of the four pictures where I include his two sisters, but I have a picture of the four of them, and it's Xana, Ashley, is it Amanda, Melissa? Is that their names? Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And I mean, I was like, wow, and I really do think that, I don't think he had that pleasant of a childhood, and maybe some mama issues. And I think Daddy tried to, help with those. I did read where him and his daddy had a physical altercation. He had gotten physical with his daddy. But I also read that the trip across country was because he was trying to make amends with his father, and that would give them the chance to talk and, stuff like that. And that was, of course, not knowing that everything was going to start falling apart.
Sirius asks if I can go back and read page 118 to highlight. It says, these three examples are giving us some idea of the origin of this particular phase in the development of function of the superego. Even when external criticism has been introjected, the threat of punishment and the offense committed by not yet been connected up in the patient's mind. Now,
and Freud was a lesbian.
Okay, and what makes you think that Bryan Kohberger was into this book here? Like, did he talk about this specific author?
He was into Sigmund Freud and Aristotle. I mean, one of his favorite quotes was from Aristotle, and it's actually on his psychology. What are those things called? You pass out as cards? Not ID cards. No, like, used to, before we had all these profiles, and you wanted to give your business card. On his business card, his psychology business card was actually a quote from Aristotle. And then a lot of his writings and everything like that, with the Darwinism and the social Darwinism, because that's sort of in conflict of Darwinism. And he was a registered libertarian, and so when you put all that together, and that's sort of where I went with that as far as doing the research. And I'll be honest with you, the person that made me deep dive every bit of this, you're going to have him on your show Friday night.
Oh, really?
Yes.
True crime time.
Oh my gosh. That is, oh wow. You talk about somebody that's got some knowledge. He was probably one of the first people. Now, y'all, I've just been doing this since January. And he was one of the first people that I watched his videos and stuff. And so he brought up, he's the one that brought up the ego depletion and stuff like that. And I was like, I got to research that. And so he's the one that actually caused all this deep diving I did, because I watched one of his videos and I wanted to know more.
Gotcha. Well, a plug for the show. Make sure you guys like, subscribe, hit that notification bell. We have Howard Bloom on Thursday night or Thursday morning. He's going to be live. We're going to do a live interview with Howard Bloom. He's written several articles in the Airmail. He has a book called When the Night Comes Falling, coming out June 25th. So we're going to have him on for the first time. I'm hoping we have him on a second time after the book is released. I recommend going and checking that out on Amazon. You can pre-order it already. He has a lot of behind the scenes information from actually being out there and talking to people who were close to this and to students and things of that nature. So we're going to have an interview with him on Thursday. And make sure you, like I said, subscribe and do all that so that way you don't miss it. Now back to this real quick. So this says here that Natalie LePan says she's my niece. They have told the family. And so this is in May. This is 5 months after, Bryan Kohberger has been arrested. So I'm sure there's probably quite a bit of information that has been passed along. Now, I don't know why they would tell one family who the target was and not other families.
Right.
You get what I'm saying?
Right.
So, I don't know. I mean, so this goes on to say, somebody goes, really, I am so sorry about the loss of your niece. Hearts to you and your family. You are my prayers. Thank you for sharing, because I never heard of this before. So they believe he ran into Xana first when he broke into the home and then continued on to MK's room. And then Natalie says, yes. And then somebody goes, thanks for sharing, Natalie. So, I mean, I don't know. It sounds, I mean, I don't know. It's possible, but based on the information that we know, I find it really hard. You know what I mean?
Oh yeah. I mean, and like I said, I have no clue what happened. I mean, the thing about it is seeing Xana may have just triggered it. You know what I'm saying? And then at that point, he, saw whatever triggered him further. You know what I'm saying? Now this is at his parents' house. They said that they got a drawing called a man's mind. And this is a Sigmund Freud, what's on a man's mind. So I was just like, wow, that could be the drawing, a man's mind, what's on a man's mind, Sigmund Freud. That's just me saying maybe, possibly.
Maybe. Canadian True Crime Buff comes in with 5 Drunk Turkey Show memberships. Thank you so much, Canadian True Crime Buff. We appreciate you. Let's see. So Linda Lane, Xana, Lindsay Lane, Ashley. Now, a lot of people have wondered, how did they come across each other? How did allegedly Bryan Kohberger select his victims? Xana worked at the Mad Greek. Now, if you Google vegan restaurants, that's the first one that pops out. Now, I understand that it may or may not be a vegan restaurant, but somebody who is new to that area, who isn't from that area, Google's vegan restaurant. Don't you think he's probably going to visit the first one that pops up?
I would say yes, but if you mention that, everybody says, but they said that they never served him. Well, I've been a waitress before, and I couldn't tell you 100% if I served somebody or not.
All right, and they may have gone through, he may have paid cash. They may have gone through their records to see if they have a Bryan or anything like that. Maybe they even have a way of writing everybody's name. Like, what's your name? They put it on the top, Bryan Kohberger. It's on the ticket or something. I don't know. But he doesn't necessarily have to purchase anything to have noticed her. I mean, he could have walked in for the first time and saw her and at that moment knew. You know what I mean?
Oh,
and
yeah.
If he knew that was the person then buying or purchasing anything at that person's business wouldn't fall in line with trying to get away with this crime, right? There are certain things you like a checklist that you probably want to, do similar to like one that we saw Rex Humerman do. And one of
Right.
them being is, no contact, social media or otherwise, don't go to that restaurant. I'd be interested to know if he visited the restaurants next to the Mad Creek where you could have a visual. That would be interesting to know. And again, this
Right.
is all 100% alleged and speculation.
100. My thing was, if it was a lone perpetrator, what could push somebody to do that? And, I think a lot of it starts with the visual snow. I mean, because he had the visual snow under control. And I don't know if you've researched the visual snow, but oh my gosh, it causes depersonalization, derealization, dissociation. It causes your sleep. You're not able to sleep. I mean, it really messes a person up. You know, it's not just the fuzziness. And it's not even really an eye problem. I mean, it's a mind problem. And the physical attribute. I mean, the what it does to the body and everything is just really overwhelming. And
Well,
so, if he's into that, if his visual snow's coming back because of the anxiety from everything going on at WSU, because anxiety and all that causes the visual snow to come back. So now he's got his life falling apart, his visual snow's coming back. You know, he's in ego depletion, and then he sees Dana, and it just throws him right over the edge.
the only argument against that is that he purchased the K-bar knife allegedly before moving down there, before the problems at WSU. And I'm not saying it's not possible or plausible. It's just, can you repeat the first part? There was something I was going to bring up about what you had said.
About the visual snow.
There you go. Yeah. All right. So when it comes to the visual snow aspect of it, we've heard of a lot of different type of life takers or killers that are out there, and they all have like, some similar issues. Sometimes, you might find the schizophrenics, and some folks have some sort of mental illness or whatever, right? I've never heard of multiple people that have had visual snow end up doing something like this. You know what I'm
No, I
saying?
mean, right, but I think what happens is with the anxiety and the visual snow, and then the visual snow throws him off of his course anyway, and then everything starts. I think what happens is everything just started falling down around him, and he just went into a tailspin. If this is what happened, if he is the perpetrator and everything, because you can't tell me that he just woke up one day and said, I'm going to go to 1122 and kill everybody in the house. There's got to be something. And that's what drove me, was I wanted to try to figure out what could drive somebody to do that.
I mean, it could just be as simple as something that he was wanting to feel inside. I'm not sure,
He
but
can do that with one person, Daniel. He doesn't have to pick a house full.
no, I understand that, but I think there
I
was more
mean,
to it. I think there is something to what you're saying as far as the egotistical aspect of it, and it being a high-profile unsolved crime probably was something that would have attracted whoever committed this crime,
that's
right?
true.
I
I hadn't
I,
thought about that aspect of it.
I don't think that whoever committed this crime um, would have thought, even if they went in there and killed just one out of six, that would have created a huge mystery on its own, and also a high profile crime on its own.
Yeah.
If he
Yeah.
wanted to just kind of feel what it felt like and that be end of it, I mean, he could have driven out to Seattle and picked up a prostitute somewhere, and it would have been a lot easier for him to get away with something like this, and it wouldn't have been something that was high profile or any of those
Yeah.
things. The fact that he chose a sorority, off-campus sorority home, it may not be registered as one, but I think everybody that was residing there was part of a sorority. It was considered Greek row. I think that also plays a factor into the decision as to why, these victims, and I can't get away from the fact that the high profile crime aspect of this case exists, that it was more than just getting away with this crime. It was about getting
It's
away with
definitely going down in infamy.
maybe. I mean, it depends. Right now, Ann Taylor's doing a pretty good job of, confusing and saying some confusing things. I'm not going to lie. A lot of people have been, I don't want to say like, fallen for what she's saying, because she's very good, and I'm not a lawyer or an expert in some of the things that they're talking about, so I can't say, hey, that guy's wrong or whatever the case may be. But when I break down their arguments from the defense's side, I find them pretty weak, and I think a lot of folks are seeing this as a strength because, well, right now the prosecution isn't fighting back with anything. You're not hearing the prosecution say, oh, okay, well, you throw on, there's no camera, or him putting up cameras, on 95 on Idaho, I raise you with this, we have this video of this car and it looks like this or whatever. We're not seeing that. We're not seeing the back and forth yet. We're only seeing the one-sidedness, because that's this phase of what would be his entire trial. That phase is right now the part where the defense is going to try to suppress evidence, try to manipulate things so that it's no longer allowed, or to confuse or misdirect possible jurors. So it's all a tactic from the defense team. It's nothing out of the ordinary. But when it comes to what their actual arguments are, saying that he was out by himself driving around with his phone not connected to the towers is really weak. And Cy Ray's testimony saying that what he finds most concerning when it comes to the test drives is that they didn't do a test drive from inside the house, and they didn't do a test drive from Pullman to Moscow. The problem with that is prosecution doesn't believe his phone was on or connected to the network inside the house. So what would be the purpose of doing a drive test from inside the house if they have nothing to compare that data to? You get what I'm saying? They have, from Genesee or from Blaine to Genesee to Unionton, they can go and test drive all that because they can compare it to what they have on record on file while he was connected to the network. But when he disconnected to the network in Pullman, how are they going to compare what he did that night between Pullman and Moscow if there's nothing to compare it to?
Right.
You get what I'm saying? So when it comes to what they're arguing for, it just seems very weak to me. I want to say thank you, Shaza Banda 16 for your. I'm gonna get it one day. I've butchered this person's name so many times. I'm just gonna call you Shaz, just like Afton says. Thank you, Shaz. I'm gonna call you Shaz. There you go. And then we have Mikey coming in with another gifted one, gifted Drunk Turkey Show membership. Thank you, Mikey. We appreciate that. We truly do. And so if you have any questions or anything, please put a couple of stars before your question or comment, and we'll bring it up. But Nina, this
now
is
one of the things that I do have is like I have a checklist of like Xana. It says, let's see, Xana's sister attended WSU. Xana worked at Mad Creek. Xana's dad fixed her lock. The DoorDash was for Xana. Xana's aunt did the Facebook post. And then I didn't know it until I did some of the research that her dad had said that she had had an altercation with a male like a couple of weeks before it happened. And of course, with everything going on with the frat fighting and stuff like that, I think we just all assumed that the altercation was with a frat boy, And so I thought, well, I wonder if the, altercation could have been, because it doesn't say who the male was.
Yeah. So this is Nina's channel, guys. It's in the description. If you want to search for it, it's at Nina_Kelly, Kellye. She has 65 subscribers. Let's get that up, guys. Let's get her up over 100. I know you guys can do it. And go check out some of her other great content that is out there, not just on the Idaho case. There's content here on Seth Rogers and more.
Yeah, that's my video to Seth Rogers. I don't know what you keep up with that, but it's more of it's a message to Seth Rogers from a parent that understands grief.
Mm-hmm.
And it's basically me reaching out to him saying, look, you can turn this around and, you know, you can make everything right. Stop acting foolish.
Right.
So,
D. Thomas Williamson says, I have visual snow and I don't want to kill anyone.
Oh.
See, that's the one thing too, also, right? I'm not entirely sure it's just, the visual snow.
No.
I don't even think the visual snow is what caused some of the issues that he may have had. It sounds like when he was doing his writings, he was talking about the effects of some of the medication to treat the visual snow that he was having, had some adverse effects on his feelings and his emotions. But I think there was also a lot more to this. He also had an addiction to heroin and other narcotics. And he had to go to rehab. He had a low
Well,
point
see,
in
in one of his Tappa Talk comments, and I didn't know this until I read all of his Tappa Talk, was that he took benzos and stuff like that, but he had overdosed on them twice.
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know that until I read it in his Tappa Talk.
That you read what again? Run that by me again?
That he for the visual snow and stuff like that, he had taken benzos and different medications, and that he had overdosed 2 times.
Oh, I wasn't aware of that. I didn't know that.
Yeah, and that's in his Tappa Talk. I mean, that's his writing.
Yeah, I mean, he's talked about having those type of thoughts of taking his own life. I think that was some of the things that he said when he was referring to his addiction times and stuff like that, that he was only doing that when he was having those thoughts. And so, when it comes to his veganism, though, I thought I read somewhere that was a result of him fighting back the effects of some of the narcotics that he was taking to assist him with his visual snow.
And also, from what I researched, he felt that being vegan and doing the, boxing and the jogging and getting in shape and everything, that's what helped his visual snow, helped him get that under control, was, being a vegan and watching his diet and stuff like that. And I mean, I think that, because he was straight up vegan. I mean, everybody knows the story of his aunt. He was like, he wouldn't even eat.
Well, I don't know if he's vegan. I think he just had a vegan diet, and I think that had a lot to do with his symptoms, because I don't think he I don't remember where I read this and stuff, like that it wasn't so much because of that the vegan stuff, because he cared about animals and things of that nature. It was because of the side effects to the drugs that he was on.
Yeah. I mean, that's what I was saying is, I don't think that it had to do with the love of animals. I think that's what helped him physically.
WK says, who knows anything about the great being involved, or could this be gang related based on drugs? This is gang to kill. So one thing that I heard this from Christy. She told me that the toxicology report came back clear for Maddie and Xana. I mean, Maddie and Kaylee. No drugs in their system, none whatsoever. Not even the stuff that's legal in certain states.
None, nothing, nada.
Nothing. And then Howard Bloom obviously has talked to other people, and he stated that there was no drugs in the system of Xana and Ethan either. None in all of them.
Right.
All of them came back clean for everything. Now, none of them were preparing to take a drug test, so it's not like they were taking something or any of those type of things to clean out their system, right? And then the likelihood of all of them doing that is very slim to none. So this all leads me to believe that the theory of potential drugs being involved or being used, or this being something of that nature, is extremely low, if 100% impossible.
Well, I mean, that's the first time I came on your show. I mean, I'm a firm believer that drugs was not involved.
Not with the victims.
No.
And I say that because this will be the last question we take, or last comment. Melissa asked, do you think BK was taking any drugs when he was, I'm assuming that last part of this, when he was committing the crime. I think that if he was committing this crime, there's some circumstantial evidence that would allude that he may have been on something, may it be bunches of coffee or 5 hours or monsters or, something else a lot stronger that could keep him awake. I mean, we know that he was up and around at 2:40 something a.m. We know that his phone goes off at that time. Who knows if he had taken a nap up to that point or not? If he hadn't, and he'd been up all day, up until 2:40 something in the morning, goes out there, allegedly commits a quadruple homicide, doesn't go straight home, drives around, and doesn't get home until nearly 6 a.m. And then within 3 hours, he's back in Moscow. And, he's by the victims' homes. And then he's back in Pullman again. And then 2 hours later at 12 o'clock, we find out that he's in Clarkston, Washington, an hour and a half or so, maybe an hour and 45 minutes, almost 2 hours south of Pullman, meaning that he must not have been home at Pullman very long to be in that location at noon. So,
right.
And then he doesn't arrive home until 8:36 p.m. So it sounds like he was up all day Friday, or all day Saturday, all day Saturday into the early morning, committed a quadruple homicide, stayed awake throughout the morning, all day that day, and didn't go home to the evening. And then at that point, maybe perhaps fell asleep. We also know that he didn't attend class or school that Monday, the following day also. So that's something to add into it as well.
But you also got to consider too, with the visual snow and the ego depletion, it mucks with your sleep. And see, what I didn't know about the visual snow, and the person that just commented, maybe she can, is that when they shut their eyes, maybe they still have like seeing visual, something uncomfortable, that to where they don't want to sleep.
Right. I mean, but there's one thing where you not being able to sleep and then being physically exhausted and being up several days in a row. And then you also have his physical appearance now. When he got arrested, according to his own defense team, at that time, he wasn't doing those long runs anymore. He exchanged the runs and stuff for the runs and hikes for drives. Remember, that's exactly what they said. So he wasn't doing those long runs, anything like that. He goes to jail. He's still on the vegan diet, yet he looks a lot healthier. His face isn't sunk in. He looks like he has more color. He looks like he's put on some weight. And typically, when somebody goes to jail and they come back healthier, it's usually because they're overweight and they lose weight, or
Look, I know how little I used to be. Believe me, if I was to ever think about going back, is sometimes when I look in the mirror, I'm like, I could go on that little M diet for 2 weeks and lose every bit of this, and then I'm like, no, I'll just stay fat, dumb, and happy.
Yeah, you'll lose everything else too. That's the problem. It's not just the weight that you lose. And so, yeah, I mean, I think that those things kind of can paint a sort of a picture, but you can't say that it's 100% accurate. The only way that anybody would know that is probably him, and if they did some sort of toxicology report on him when they arrested him, which I assume they may have. I'm not sure. I don't know.
I'm sure. They probably did a hair follicle.
I would hope so. I've never heard of it, where they do DNA testing when they
to test for
DNA
drugs.
testing, drug testing going into a facility, unless there's like a medical emergency going on at that time.
Right.
You know what I mean? So I'm not entirely
because
sure.
by the time he was arrested, a hair follicle would have been the only way to detect it.
Yeah. Well, unless he was still actively using.
Oh yeah, that's true. They did find that green leafy stuff.
Yeah, they did find that. I forgot about that. Well, Nina, this is your. Let me put this back up here, everybody. If you guys can go give Nina a follow, let her know that the Drunk Turkey Show sent you. Nina, do you have any
Thank
final
you.
words or anything before we call this a show?
No, I mean, Daniel, I was so nervous, and you make it so easy. I mean, I tell people all the time, I mean, they're like, I'm nervous. And I'm like, y'all don't understand. Daniel makes it really easy.
Yeah, I appreciate that. And I know how nerve-wracking it can be, and to me, I just think it's, if we can just have a conversation, it'll make the content better, and it also make things easier for everybody.
Oh, yeah. And like I said, I'm sure Daniel will say the same thing. As far as justice, let's always remember the victims and the families.
100%. 100%. Well, everybody, I appreciate everybody tuning in. Here in the next 5, maybe 10 minutes, the members only show that was recorded yesterday, or on Sunday, I'm sorry, is about to be aired out on Spotify. So make sure you go check it out over there. With that being said, I'm out of here, guys.